Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, yet for another interesting series of webinar. Apologies about those who first joined the other link. I have been able to provide the right information. I hope we are all here now. We have some participants who joined using the other link.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, thank you. So today's webinar is the fourth session on adaptation for ETF reporting. And today we shall be focusing on an overview of the remaining areas that are in the subsequent series of the BTR sections of adaptation as provided for in the MPGs. So today we are going to focus on section G, H, and I. And these are mainly focusing on information related to averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage associated with climate change impacts, cooperation related to adaptation, good practices, experience and lessons learned, and any other information related to climate change impacts and adaptation under Article 7 of the Paris Agreement. So to just take you through how the program for today will run, today we have a slightly shorter program than usual. We shall have opening and introduction that I'm trying to do. And then we shall have a session on overview on the reporting on loss and damage, like I had explained. And then we shall have a short quiz with a few questions. And then we shall get a volunteer from you who can share with us experiences on how they have been doing adaptation reporting under the existing arrangements, focusing on loss and damage and or how you plan to do it. So we shall be waiting on the volunteer from you to discuss and present how they plan to do that. And then we shall also have a question and answer discussion. And then we shall go to the breakout groups and then come back to plenary after 20 minutes, after 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes for plenary for the breakout sessions. And then we shall have our last session today, which will be a Mentimeter, and then we shall wrap up the session. So I would like to now invite my colleague Slajana to take on the first session of today, session 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, very much. Thanks to all who joined us today to participate at our final technical, webinar related to reporting adaptation within the BTR. So I will start with today's presentation, which is also a bit shorter than previous. So I'll share now the presentation. I hope that you can see my screen now.
Yes, we see it.
Thank you. So as Sheila already says, today we will go through the sections of G, H, and I of the MPGs related to the reporting adaptation within the BTR. So in this session, I would like to say at the beginning that guidelines within these sections are outside of the main component of the guidelines dedicated to reporting on adaptation, and instead addressing loss and damage in section G, cooperation, knowledge sharing and strengthening research and scientific knowledge in section H, and any other information that you can add on your adaptation in section I. So let's focus on section G, which is introduction to loss and damage. So before I begin, I would like to quickly provide an introduction to the concept of the loss and damage. It is important to stress that there is no widely agreed definition of the loss and damage in context of the climate change. So far, For the purpose of this presentation, we adopt a definition proposed by Doktic and Apkovic, who understand the term to refer to the actual and/or potential manifestation of impacts associated with climate change that negatively affect human and natural systems. So loss and damage related to climate change are caused by two categories of climate hazard. Extreme weather events, which are actually single, discrete events with a clear beginning and clear end, like storm surge, droughts, heat waves, and floods. And also slow onset events, which are long-term phenomena caused by which are caused or intensified by anthropogenic climate change that take place over a prolonged period of time without a clear start or end point. That is, for example, sea level rise, salinization, ocean acidification, desertification, loss of biodiversity, etc., etc. The term loss and damage is often used as a single term, however. Damages generally refers to negative impacts that are not necessarily permanent, so they are repairable, recoverable, or replaceable. And also they are otherwise known as economic costs associated with climate impacts and can be expressed in the monetary value. As such, they can be qualified through structured assessment like post-disaster needs assessment, surveys, and modeling. Damages caused by extreme weather events and related costs can be divided also in three categories. Direct costs, that are costs that occur as a direct result of event in question, like loss of property in tourist resorts because of the storm, or indirect costs, which are the costs that occur due to domino effect that original event makes, like loss of tourism as a result of damage caused by the storm. Also, there are risk management costs, which are costs of measures implemented in order to reduce the extent of loss and damage incurred when extreme weather events occur. Risk mitigation measures could include, for example, the cost of operation of an early warning system for climate hazards, or costs that responding to the hazard, like cost of evacuating of citizens, etc. In generally, losses refers to impacts that are permanent or that are not repairable, recoverable, or replaceable. Losses are also known as non-economic losses and damage, which are intangible in nature and often hard to define or to measure. So loss cannot easily be quantified in monetary terms because things lost under terms losses are not typically marketed. As such, non-economic losses and damage, or just losses related to climate change, are very difficult to assess. To better understand what losses entails, McNamara divides the various manifestations of losses into five broad and interconnected categories, like human mobility and territory, for example, that relates to the loss of territory because of the sea level rise. Then life and health, considering loss of life or reduced life quality. Biodiversity and ecosystem services, for example, a loss of biodiversity and ecosystems due to climate pressures. Cultural heritage and indigenous knowledge means losses of cultural sites or losses of indigenous knowledge. Then also sense of place and social cohesion, which relates to loss of sense of belonging, of identity, that is actually related to loss of land. Before I continue, it is important to note that unlike the rest of the guidelines for the BTR, the guidelines related to loss and damage use the word may as a prefix instead of the word should that is used in guidance for a previous section that we talked about. This essentially means that reporting on loss and damage is considered to be more voluntary than other information requested by the guidelines. As such, it is only anticipated that countries that really want to report on loss and damage will include this information in their BTRs. So the main goal of the Section G is to provide countries with an opportunity to report on loss and damage within the BTRs. The information requested here can be divided in three broad categories. First one is information about losses and damage that have been or are expected to be suffered as a result of climate change. The next is information about actions your country is implementing or planning to implement to manage present and future losses and damages, and institutional arrangements that your country has to facilitate the management of loss and damage. The requests for information about losses and damages sustained or expected is made by bullet point A, observed and potential climate change impacts, including those related to extreme weather events and slow onset events, drawing upon the best available science. This request is essentially asking for countries to provide descriptions or estimations of loss and damage that is already been incurred or observed, and descriptions or estimations of losses and damages that are expected in the future. But in both cases, loss and damages relevant to being reported on here can be related to either extreme weather events or slow onset events. The reference in this bullet point to drawing upon the best available science suggests that information provided here should be as robust as possible given the reporting country's national circumstances. In other words, countries should aim to, if possible, rely on assessments that are able to attribute losses and damages to climate change. However, conducting such assessments require a certain quality of data and resources that not all countries possesses, particularly small island developing country or countries or low developing countries whom are actually most likely to want to report on this issue. Therefore, in the absence of the formal assessments, countries could revert to much less resource-intensive approaches, such as simple reasoning or another alternative. Countries choosing to report on past and expected losses and damages would ideally be able to present information about direct and non-direct economic costs, potentially including costs of risk mitigation and non-economic costs. It is likely that the majority of information provided by countries will be predominantly focused on the direct economic impacts or direct damages of extreme weather events. So that can be due to present lack of assessment methodologies and framework for assessing the full economic costs of extreme weather events, and also due to inherent uncertainties associated with assessing loss and damage related to slow onset events, economic and non-economic. This, however, should not prevent countries interested in reporting on losses and damages from doing so, as in absence of more robust assessment methodologies, information on loss and damages could be instead captured by more qualitative means, such as case studies. Providing information in this form, while it is not perfect or particularly robust, is also better than not communicating or recording that information at all. In narratives and case studies can be used by countries as an effective means of conveying how certain types of losses and damages are being experienced within their territory. Good examples of what such case studies could look like you can find in the document Loss and Damage Case Studies from the Front Line, and also in publication of Climate Refugees, for which the links you can see at this slide. So when reporting on losses and damages, countries can report on both observed loss and damages and anticipated ones. For this, countries need information that is typically generated by different processes, including post-disaster impact assessments, scientific studies, and assessments. As you can see from the table on the right side of this slide, potential information for losses and damage due to extreme events can be like post-disaster impact assessments, case studies from affected communities, scientific assessments, scientific studies, case studies, etc., etc. So moving on to the area of information requested by Section G, actions to manage loss and damage. So this aspect of Section G asks countries to describe actions planned or being implemented that relate to managing loss and damage. Under bullet point B, guidelines asking for information on activities related to averting, minimizing, and addressing loss and damage associated with adverse effects of climate change. This request is essentially the same request made by guidelines for information on adaptation actions that are implemented or planned, but for actions that relate to loss and damage. One would expect countries to approach reporting on these actions on a similar way. While the question on how to present this information is notionally straightforward, identifying what activities constitute managing loss and damage could be more tricky, as they often not framed as such. Further, due to their conceptual closeness, it is often difficult to identify which actions should be framed as managing loss and damage, and which actions should be framed as adaptation or disaster risk reduction. Actions that manage loss and damage are generally understood to be actions to reduce the scale of losses and damages when losses and damages cannot be avoided due to different technical, financial, or physical constraints. Actions used to manage loss and damage will differ depending on whether they are managing losses and damage due to extreme weather events or losses and damages related to slow onset events. Actions that manage loss and damage are actions that reduce the scale of losses and damages when it cannot be avoided. Some examples of measures that do this for extreme weather events include risk retention, self-insurance or self-insurance measures which can build up resilience of population or state to expect or unexpected damages incurred to the climate events. Risk retention measures can include establishing or strengthening social protection schemes which aiming to build resilience amongst the population. Also, establishing catastrophe funds to increase the state ability to offset unexpected damages caused by extreme weather events, or risk transfer measures such as insurance, catastrophe bonds, and other financial instruments that enable countries to shift the economic risks of extreme weather events to the third parties, in this case, to the insurers. Interestingly, under this definition, actions that qualify as risk reduction, for example, construction of seawalls or establishment of early warning system that are commonly reported as efforts to manage loss and damage, would not actually count as management of loss and damage, as they would strictly qualify as adaptation or DRR, depending on one's perspective. Regardless to that, however, countries may want to report on these actions in related how they are managing loss and damage anyway, as they represent an important part of loss and damage. Measures to manage loss and damage from slow onset events include establishing or strengthening institutional arrangements aimed at facilitating cooperation amongst agencies and other stakeholders in performing tasks necessary for managing the impacts of slow onset events. And also the second category are the measures establishing governance schemes to manage the gradual changes in resources to deal with socioeconomic consequences of these changes. On this table, you can see some examples of actions for addressing economic and non-economic losses and damage that's prepared by UNEP. And for instance, actions for addressing economic losses and damage are pre-disaster financial support or risk retention, risk transfer, early warning, loss and damage databases to support decision making, planned allocation or assisted migration. These are all actions proposed for extreme weather events, but some of them can be implemented during or post-climate events. Such actions can be humanitarian assistance, support for rebuilding of the livelihood, compensation, etc., etc. Finally, the section G asks authors to provide information about any existing institutional arrangements to facilitate implementation of activities referred in paragraph 115b. This request basically refers to earlier guidelines provided in section E, which request information about institutional arrangements for facilitating adaptation. As such, countries with pre-existing institutional arrangements that have been established to manage loss and damage could approach reporting on this information in the BTR in the similar manner to how they have approached reporting on other institutional arrangements. While not explicitly requested by the guidelines provided in MPGs, when reporting on these institutional arrangements, countries could report on any legal instruments, for example, laws or any acts that mandate the government to act to address loss and damage. So the section H. The main goal of the section H is to ensure countries to provide information about the cooperation, good practices, experiences, and lessons learned. The information requested here can be divided in two broad categories: efforts to collaborate or share knowledge, and efforts to strengthen scientific research and knowledge systems. So moving to the second area requested by section G, as bullet point A is asking countries to report on the efforts it has made to share information, good practices, experiences, and lessons learned. As such, countries could consider reporting on all forms of cooperation and knowledge sharing activities that are deemed relevant to report on and have meaningful relevance to adaptation or loss and damage. This could include, for example, participation in regional adaptation programs and research projects or cross-border initiatives, or participation in regional adaptation forums, programs, initiatives specifically aimed at sharing experiences, lessons learned, good practices, etc., which is all related to adaptation. Also, under this section, countries could choose to provide description on any of the good practices established, interesting experience they had, and lessons learned that they have been sharing through the events and initiative being reported on. Although this is not specifically asked for by the guidelines in the section H, providing material to this effect will enable countries to sharing potentially useful information with an international audience to contribute to global pool of knowledge, or to help developing countries gain recognition for certain aspects of their national adaptation processes that have been particularly successful. So moving to the second area of information related to section H, where bullet point B is asking countries to report on activities that strengthen scientific research and knowledge. And this request is specifically related to climate, including research, systematic observation, and early warning system, vulnerability and adaptation, and monitoring and evaluation. In this request, countries should report on actions it is undertaking and that increase the country's knowledge and understanding of the range of the fields directly related to adaptation. For example, related to vulnerability, adaptive capacity, methodologies to monitor on and evaluate adaptation, etc., etc. Increasing countries' capacities to generate relevant data that may in turn lead to increase in the quality of scientific research, knowledge generation, and on early warning system. For example, upgrading systematic observation systems or expanding the capacities of monitoring and evaluation systems. And at the end, the section I, which actually does not provide guidance in the same manner as section from A to H or other sections, as it does not make any targeted request for information. Instead, it actually allows countries to include any additional information relating to adaptation and climate impact that is not presently outlined by guidelines. In other words, countries can include any other information related to adaptation they find relevant or they want to share with the audience. So this is, I will stop here. This is the end of the technical part of this webinar, where we went through all sections of adaptation BTR. And I would like to thank you all for your patience. I know that we shared lots of information with you. And also, I would like to remind you that you always can go back to these materials, which will be posted at our climate transparency platform, and check out and use that as a guidance and suggestions for your further reporting on adaptation within your BTRs. So my big thanks to you. And if you have any questions here, I'm ready and willing to really answer to that.
Yes,
so I'll
we
stop
have
here.
2 questions in the chat. Thank you so much, Tilajana, for that. One is about, can we use data compiled on Sendai framework to monitor as proxy to report on loss and damage in the ETF and BTR? That is one of the questions.
Yes, of course. All data that you have in relation to losses and damage, you can use in this sense. As you can see, in different sections, there are different requests for information, and also at the end, you can share any additional data that you might find relevant for audience to hear. So yes.
Yes, so another question says, also some losses and damage are dealt with at household level and even commercial level and are not reported at central level authorities. How can a country cater for these sectors?
As through examples through this presentation, I already mentioned the losses and damages can be sorted out in different categories, and this one is material, which means that is measurable in monetary values. So I know that in many countries, after disasters, the local communities collect data from the residents about the losses and damages that occurred. Unfortunately, in many cases, these data are not shared, or they are just kept within the local communities. And there I see opportunity and sources of data that are not used and not reported at all. So it is a matter of your institutional arrangements and setup to make links between local communities, if that is case that your local communities have such a data. So to make system and enable the data flow from local communities to central governments to collect data and to be able to report on.
Thank you so much for that.
I hope that I answered to the question.
Yes, and I think you really answered very well, but also from the examples you gave in your presentation, they were catering for different levels of the institutional structure, and also considering the different possible data sources that countries could have. So I think it's kind of clear, but as adaptation teams, as damage and loss teams, I think it would also be very important for countries to sit and define the scope of what kind of data they have, and then it would also help them to actually be able to synthesize and prioritize which can be reported in the BTR. So, and this now takes us to the second session. If we don't have any questions from the participants, our next session is a short quiz. I will present and of course request us to download the Menti. I hope you can see my screen. So the Menti instructions are here. Yes, I hope you can see. So you go to www.menti.com and then the code for today is 34308872. I'll put this in our chat so that it can be easily accessible. So kindly go ahead and download the Menti so that we can start. Yes, thank you so much. I can see some of you have already joined. Thank you. The instructions are www.menti34308872 is the code for today's Menti. We shall have these are questions to reflect about our learning. Let me see how many players we have so far. I can see we have 9 players. We could have more since we are around 30 people to make the learning a bit more interesting. So I can see we have 10 players. Maybe let me wait for a few people. Go to www.menti.com and then the code for today is 34308872. Yes, I think we can do 11 players. Yes, I can see 12. So let's approach our first question. Others will join us along the way. I didn't want to leave anyone behind. Yeah. So our first question is guidelines on adaptation reporting in BTR envisage reporting on loss and damage. Is this true or false? We have 30 seconds. I can see 5 people have already answered. We need everyone to answer so that we are able to see. Yeah. We still have more seconds to go. Yeah, thank you for answering. Yes, this is very true, and I can see that everyone was able to pass this question, which means I think our learning was really good. So this is how the scoreboard looks like. We have Kathy taking lead, but I think everyone is taking lead because everyone passed the question. I can see we are all at the same level. So let's go to our next question. We already have 12 players. I think I will immediately click the next button. So damages generally refers to negative impacts and that are not necessarily permanent. That is repairable, recoverable, or replaceable. Is this true or false? I know some of us joined late, but it was defined. So it would be nice to see if there's also understanding from your perspective that damages generally refers to negative impacts that are not necessarily permanent, are repairable, recoverable, or replaceable. So we have 7 people who have managed to get this. So it is very true. That's how they are referred to, what they are referred to. Yes. So the scoreboard looks like that. Let's see the next question. So we still have 12 players. Others were not able to join. So it is our third question. It is about losses generally refers to climate impacts that are permanent, that is, are not repairable, recoverable, or replaceable. Is this true or false? Let's wait and see. Wow. So this is still very true about losses. Yeah. Yeah, this is how the scoreboard looks like. So our fourth question, we have 12 players still in the game. So our fourth question is about if countries do not have access to robust data about losses and damages incurred nationally, can they still report using less robust data? Let's see. Is it true or false? Yes or no? Wow, we voted in less time. Yes, it is very true. Thank you for that. I think it relates with the last question that our colleague asked. This is how the scoreboard looks like. I think we are all doing well. And we have all scored the same marks, as you can see. But we still have, there's a tie. Yes, and I think this was our last question, and you can see awesome job to all those who were able to tie. Yeah, thank you and thank you. So this marks our last question for the quiz. And we are going to go into our next session where we are supposed to have a reflection from a volunteer on sharing their experiences on adaptation and how they plan to actually approach the loss and damage reporting from the country perspective. Just a volunteer, a few minutes, you don't need to have a prepared presentation. It would be good to understand how, as a country, you plan to approach this. So I open the floor. You can put up your hand. You can post in the chat. Kindly feel free to use any approach that makes you comfortable. The floor is open. Thank you. Yes, we are waiting. We are going to give it 2 more minutes. Any volunteer, it would be nice. To hear what you think about loss and damage. Yes, Silajana, say something.
Yeah, maybe I can ask one simple question to our participants. Actually, that is something that all know, and it would be very interesting to see what are the main causes of loss and damage in your countries, including extreme weather events and slow onset events, since you are and we are all coming from different regions. So just to see from you what are the most important or what are events that make most of the damage and that your countries and government are most concerned about. In the country that in my country, I'm coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, the most important, let's say, event is flood and drought, actually, which occurs in the last few decades, I don't know, like any second year, and causes huge problems and losses and damage, even losses of life and losses of soil, territories, etc., etc. And the country is really struggling with that. But also making some actions and steps in order to reduce the flood risk specifically, or developing flood risk management plans for different river basins, etc., etc., and also implementing soft and hard construction measures within the basins. So in the previous few years, it's a lot done in that context on many river basins in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So yeah, it would be nice to hear also some experiences from your countries, maybe different from this one, and probably.
Yes, I see Medea's hand up. Kindly unmute yourself and speak. Thank you. I also see from Eswatini, someone has shared that they usually have hailstorms as well as during summer and also lightning. No, yes. So they also have some floods and droughts and windstorms. So kindly use the chat and mute yourself and speak. So we already have one. Kindly speak.
So in my country, I have already said that there are some dangers caused by climate change, and there are slow onset events like rising the sea level and glaciers. These are main things that are also causing catastrophes and extreme weather events. Because, as I said, there is a vicinity of the sea and the high mountains there, and there are frequent landslides and mud flows there caused by this event, and so they are all together slowly ongoing events and catastrophic weather events, and because of that. We depend very much on scientific information and observations, and this is done by our National Environmental Agency, which is completed with high professionals, really. And we have also very, unfortunately, the earliest data in it were not electronic, and there is a parallel process of proceeding them to making them electronic. And now we have very long observations there, and they also make field visits and identify there are even newly occurred and newly discovered areas of danger for landslides and mud flows and so on. And they are informing the society about it. And we have also under the Ministry of Internal Affairs, there is a department of extreme events. But that departments, they have their own groups in each place, in regions and in cities, and they are a few people, rescue people, but they are not enough to deal with the catastrophes that are very frequent, and that's why we see early warning systems as the main solution of that. And as I said, it is under development now, not finished yet. And regarding their finalization, there is also a big problem about coordination of their efforts, because when we have the information, scientific information about warnings and so on, and areas are identified and so on, we don't know the exact date, exact time when it happens, but we must be ready for it. So when we have this information that something is happening, we should inform about the danger that is approaching. And that was missed last year when we had a really big catastrophe in one of the resorts, where there was a very rare event about clashing two different things. So there was a glacier and there was also rock disruption. So it happened together, and it caused a big mud flow that destroyed all the infrastructure there and took life of more than 30 people. They are mainly children, because there were families there. It's a very famous resort there, and so there was no full coordination. I mean, because they could react on it, and there are also some legal things that are to be taken in consideration to be ready for such events. For example, legal constraints about building infrastructure and building houses and cottages and so on in the places that are considered as dangerous. And so there are some things that are to be done beforehand. So I imply these things. I mean, loss and damage as a preliminary set of actions, including not only institutional but also legal and so on, and capacity building and so on, and scientific area is very important there, but the coordination and capacity are crucial. There is also health-related things. We have a shift of seasons, and it is really very tangible now. We see it, and it is related to agriculture and so on, and people also, and it makes different changes in human health as well, because we experience more and more temperatures. So we are losing winter. So we have more and more warm winter, and our winter resorts make reduce their time of functioning, and there is not only economical some influence on our health, because we are accustomed to some temperature, and this temperature is not kept. So thank you very much. Your presentation was really very detailed, and very often there is no full understanding between about the differentiation between the purely adaptation actions and loss and damage, because it is really a very specific field. And thank you very much for this detailed explanations and the differentiation of different things there, and really it was very interesting for me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And my colleague Jana wants to say something, but before she can come in, I think we also appreciate your detailed submission, which brought up very interesting issues about the institutional, the scientific data, the availability of even science in the country that are able now to translate the scientific data to bring into the context of damage and loss concept. We really appreciate that kind of sharing, but also you emphasized the shift in season and how it is impacting on even other sectors and how that can be reflected in the reporting. That was really very good. I will allow my colleague to come in as we wait to hear from Issa and then later Gabriel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila. Just to thank to Medea for sharing the experience. I'm very sorry to hear that you are facing this size of the catastrophes, and really hope that you will manage in near future to better cope with these events. Also, I really appreciate that you underlined the issue of institutional and legal arrangements in the context of the loss and damage. So I also think that that's the crucial for any aspect of the adaptation and also mitigation, because if you have good institutional arrangements, data share, activities, roles shared, etc., and also in the background legally regulated all areas in this context, you will be, and each country will be much better able to cope specifically with this catastrophic events. So thank you, Medea, very much.
Yes, so Issa, kindly unmute yourself and speak.
Hello, hi everyone. Okay, thank you very much, Sheila and colleague for this presentation. I want to share just on the issue of loss and damage in the context of Tanzania. The impact of climate change in Tanzania that led to loss and damage. Most of them are flooding, extreme temperature, and the mudslides. In the case of flooding, even now there are a number of flooding that have been happened in different parts of the country. And the flooding, they have caused a number of losses, including loss of lives of people. For instance, you have already more than 200 people have been died due to flooding in different parts of the country, including Dar es Salaam, Morogoro. Yeah, but in case of mudslide, even I think it was last year during the COP, we heard that Tanzania has experienced a mudslide in Manyara at Katesh area, where a natural catastrophe happened and a number of people were dead. Even in terms of damages, there are some of infrastructure that are being damaged due to mudslides. Even people were lost, and some housing were lost due to mudslides. In terms of extreme temperature, drought has been also happened in Tanzania, in the northern region, part like Longido, where a number of livestock were dead due to drought. But despite of such challenges, of course, the government is trying to put a lot of policy frameworks that they respond to loss and damages. Even in recent time where flooding has happened, through the Prime Minister's office, that is disaster risk management, has put a number of preparedness response plan to those climatic events that were caused by El Nino. Even the mudslide in Katesh, the Prime Minister has done a number of efforts to respond to that disaster. Therefore, you can see loss and damage also in Tanzania. Some of the key challenges, I think they affect the socio-economic sector of productions, like agriculture, livestock, even the ecosystems are being affected. Therefore, we have an institutional framework that is learned from the national up to the local levels that deals with the response to disaster management. But we have also early warning systems like the Tanzania Meteorological Agency, the key institution that is responsible for providing early warning information to the country in case of expected extreme weather events like last day you heard about the tropical cyclone of Hidaya that was become a sore threat to the country, although it didn't really lead to a lot of damage and loss. But in area like Mafia, a number of houses were being affected by that is tropical cyclones. Even the infrastructures were also being damaged, and we had some deaths of some people where the cyclone that came near Mafia in Zanzibar. But also we are doing some strategies at the country levels. We have the national climate change response strategy of water and disease that they put some measures, but also they mainstream the issue of disaster risk management so that we can prepare, respond, and then mitigate and if possible recover to the erosion damage that has to the issues of climate change. That is the few now I can say regarding for Tanzania context. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is very insightful to learn, not really insightful, but to learn that there's a lot, but also I know that it might not like be recorded in one place, but as experts to know that those different elements are happening, it's very important. But then I think maybe in our last session, we shall keep asking ourselves, then how do we actually document all these happenings to be able to report in that section of damage and loss under our BTRs? Do we need to conduct specific studies? Do we need to develop systematic documentation progressively to be able to actually quantify that kind of damage and loss? So I think it's just a question of reflection, but I'm really happy that as experts, we can talk about the different incidences that are causing damage and losses in our country. But I think you mentioned something to do with policy framework. Usually, the challenge we have in our climate change circle, that landscape where we have very good arguments, but when we don't have clear scientific, well-documented scientific evidence, sometimes it's not very easy to influence the policy framework. So I think it would be very nice that we also start planning for support that can help us document some of these incidences so that in progressive reporting, it becomes a little more easy to report on them. So as we work on our BTR, our improvement plans, or any other information should be well documented towards that kind of support. We had a hand from our colleague from Sierra Leone, Mr. Gabriel Kapaka. I think you can still unmute yourself and share with us. I think this sharing is very important. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sheila, for giving me the floor. And then thanks to, of course, the presenter, Tajana. I hope I get it clearly. I think it was very, very much informative. Never mind, some of us joined late, but I want to share the Sierra Leone perspective in this particular vein. So, firstly, for Sierra Leone, the climate in Sierra Leone is tropical. So we have raining and dry season in the country. And Sierra Leone happens to be a vulnerable countries because we are one of the 46 vulnerable countries now across the globe under the LDC group. We've been categorized. And most of the climate change extreme events normally falls between either extreme temperature or that of extreme rainfall within the country. So like for the rapid onset, flooding occur yearly now. I can remember some 15 years ago when some of us joined the Met Service, flooding frequency return period was around 5-6 years. But for the past 6 years now, flooding is happening every year. Normally due to the land use changes and also because of the climate change event. So the slow onset event also occurs in Sierra Leone, like sea level rise. Sierra Leone is a kind of like a complex country. We have hills, we have seas, lovely. So sea level rise also affects Sierra Leone. Landslide, you can remember in 2017, we lost around 1,000 people. We are killed, and over several houses were destroyed as a result of landslide. Mud flow also normally occurred, but sometimes they occurred in the forest without a loss of lives or property, but definitely there are loss of biodiversity in most of these areas. So like when it comes to the case of loss and damage, which is the case of climate change, so we have a kind of a prototype institutional arrangement. So there are laws, there are legislations that have enacted some institutions already have some bearing when it comes to loss and damage. One could be we have the Met Service, which is an scientific institution that normally does what we call the climate projection for several years, and then also the early warning systems that they push through to the public, at least because to see whether any of these extreme events are occurring, so that people can act. I can remember recently we have been pushing out to the public extreme events because now we are recording extreme temperature in the country. It's very, very hot. The rainfall pattern has really become very less. The plant season used to be like 6 months. Now the rain period is like 2 months and some days. So extreme events, early one is pushed to the public, flooding, and so you name them. And then we also have institutions like the National Disaster Management Agency, which is the agency inside of this disaster when it comes to prevention and also to risk reduction. So what they do, I think, is that disaster management agency, we already have what they call interplanetary meetings. In the interplanetary coordination meeting, so that is coordination, wherein you have a coordinator group for scientific research, which is the Met agency leading that. There's also a coordination group for reliefs, where you have the UN agencies that provide the funding. And they also have, for example, the one that has with registrations. So whenever a disaster happened in Sierra Leone, I will tell you that for the past, I think since some years back, when they formed the NDMA, they always record the losses that occurred. I will tell you, like 2 days ago, there was a fire outbreak in the party in the capital city of Sierra Leone, wherein they can record the household, the property loss, how many families were displaced. So there is this record that is there. And also we have the Ministry of Environment, is the one that normally do the supervisions and also work with other agencies like the EPA, of course, the Office of President. So, and also in Sierra Leone, we have also developed several policies. So now I think we've always developed a kind of like a fund basket to address any extreme losses. So if there is flooding, if there is landslide, what can be done? So like funding that we can get from external donors can be there, and also the government can put some funding there. That fund was developed, the basket was developed recently in the country. And also we have some policies like the climate change policies in the country. If you look through our NDC, you see that we're elaborators on a kind of loss and damage within the country. Also, if you look through our NAP, it's been captured there. So also, there are some research that have been carried out that you can only see in our documents, be the NDC, the NAP, even the national communications. That can tell about what are the climate change circumstances, what sectors are being vulnerable as far as losses is concerned, but this will require also some research. And also in the country also, we've developed a kind of a research was done, of which there is a portal developed called the HAPPIS that have already identified hazards around Sierra Leone, the whole entire country, but that was done some 6 years back. So it's something that maybe we need to revise again. So we know areas that are vulnerable to a certain extreme event. So if there is any warning that goes to the public, where they could act. So the actions now normally that take place in the country is that one, every year, the Met Agency and other partners make sure that they push out to the public projections, climate projections. What's the climate scene when the business as usual, or when you take the climate smart approach. And also the Met Service on a seasonal basis provide an outlook of what people are expecting, and then a daily forecast is also published to the public. But we all know the constraints faced by these developed countries. So even if a disaster is happening, sometimes this information acceptance is also a challenge to the public for them to take actions. So I would say from our end, to be precise, we also face some serious challenges, capacity to be precise. And capacity is not only like having just a trained staff, even having the infrastructures. So like the early warning signs that go to the public, it's not throughout the country. We just have selected areas because, as you are mentioning in your presentation, not all places in the country for us have, for example, seawalls, or not all places in our country, for example, have the weather stations. And also you have team staff that are being recruited by the government to serve like millions and millions of course, the population. Also, when you're sending out some warnings to the public, how can it trickle down? So we think that from Sierra Leone, when it comes to the area of loss and damage, we can use the existing structure that we have already, the different institutions, and the current reporting that we are getting from the Disaster Management Agency, because they have data about the losses. And then already we have, of course, a historical idea about what are the extreme events. So it's also maybe what you've shared with us, and then what the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change maybe might share with us also in the near future to see how we can come together, have, for example, a dedicated technical committee or a working group on loss and damage that can also include other people as maybe that could be related, and also see how we can do this reporting in BTR and other related documents, so that we can report. Never we cannot exhaustively report everything. For areas that we have, of course, access to, we can report, and areas that require funding for us to have more reports, we can do that. And also, I think that's all I have for now. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Because I like the sharing, I think I will not even repeat what you have shared, but you really touched so many different areas, institutional arrangements, how the existing institutional arrangements have been working together to support collection of that data on damage and loss, the med services, the early warning, the disaster risk management teams, the EPA, and then you also talked about the limited, the biggest challenge as the limited capacity, both human resource and of course institutional, and also the other capacity in terms of infrastructure development. But I think we really appreciate that kind of sharing, and it brought in a different angle from what we had heard from other people. I would like to give one more last time. We had a hand up from Leah, I think. Lilia Tiranu, kindly unmute yourself and share with us. We are very interested in learning from each other because this is a learning process and most of our webinars are for learning. So it would be very important that you share with us. Kindly unmute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I want to share some information related to Moldova. Moldova is highly vulnerable to climate change and disasters. And I want to mention the disaster as floods, droughts, heavy rains, hail, extreme precipitation, late spring frosts. I want to say that instead of climate change and increase of temperature, we often have the late spring frost, and which are very it's sensitive for fruits, for example, and wine, our garden. And I want to say a little about our institutional arrangements in area of disaster. We have the commissions of energy situation, which chairman is Prime Minister, and Ministry of Internal Affairs, Civil Protection and Emergency Situation Service. We have Commission for Emergency Situation of Central Public Management Authority, and we have territorial commissions, and also we have, as mentioned in her presentation, Slajana, the local commissions for emergency situation. In case when we have, it's much more higher these systems, but I give only this little presentation. And in case of the state emergency in the Moldova, we have president coordination through the government of the Republic of Moldova and parliament and the service of the civil protection. We have commissioned, this is about, I was mentioned before, territorial departments, and we have national network for monitoring and laboratory and control of environment and potentially dangerous objects. We have different civil protection teams, local authorities who also involved in process. But by the moment, Moldova don't have disaster risk strategy and lacks a coherent disaster risk management strategy, as I say, to identify hazards, conduct risk assessment, prioritize risk reduction effort, and the mainstream risk information into national, sectoral, and regional development programs. And Moldova, of course, have some attempts to introduce a national disaster risk management framework, but by these days we don't have. But we have some legal frameworks elaborated for different disasters. For example, we have flood directives, we have some plans for different river basins, we have drought regulation, how population need to do what they need to do in case of droughts. We have, of course, a lot of programs related to our other soils, because Moldova is, we have very rich soils, but a lot of them under soil degradation, erosion, landslides. And in this case, we need to implement a lot of measures related to improve our soils. We have, of course, in case of hails, practically all the country except one area is we have anti-hail systems. We have programs, as I say, related to drought, floods, but we need, this is unique. Of course, we have some catastrophic funds and need of disaster is produced. And I want to say also several words related to how to assess loss and damages. Of course, we have some very good data which we have elaborated some projection including extreme events, but our national legislation have the other terminology used in case of disasters. We have differences between international and local terminology and methodology used, but I think that the near time all these discrepancies disappear. And in case of loss of damages, as I say, we have very good data related to hydrometeorological disaster on the past. For 10 years, we have on district level. For more than 20 years, we have on national level. And they are not disaggregated and open access. We have only summary, but it's also quite good, I think, because we have a comparative study between international data, and we observed that international data as a rule not include the same data as national data. This is in case of national data, we have much more damages and lost reported in case of our hydrometeorological hazards. That's short. That's all.
Thank you so much. Those are very interesting experiences. I wish we had more time, would listen more and more, because I think reporting on damage and loss will be the most interesting because it's the most country specific. And I can see countries are really ready to submit how they have been doing it, especially building from the existing institutional structures and how especially the disaster risks have been managed in the different countries. So we are supposed to be going for our next session, but maybe before we go, because this is the last day of the series, I wanted to ensure that everyone is in the room. I will request that we just put on our cameras so we can take a photo, at least so that our 4 days, this is our wrap-up photo, so we have so many smiles. Yeah. So I'll request that you switch on your cameras so that you can have our wrap-up photo for the full series. And of course, with some smiles, it would be nice. I can see faces I've not met before. Yeah. So I'm waiting for a few cameras on this face that I'm seeing so I can take the first picture. Okay. Okay, I think I can take the first picture. Then I will also take the second picture. Okay. Let me take the second picture now because it had disappeared. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Can see everyone. Yeah, so thank you so much for that. Our last session, our wrap-up session, the second last, before we actually close today, we have our breakup group discussions, group 1 and group 2, and we have 2 questions. I will request that after our groups, we don't disappear. We are 28 so far. So I will allocate the groups quickly so that we have only 10 minutes. I think we have 5 minutes in the group because we want to have more time during the discussion. So I will give it just a few minutes, 5 minutes, and then we shall come back. Then we can use around maybe 15 minutes. So I will assign groups now. So we shall see ourselves go to the groups. Yes, groups are, we are going in our groups, I can see. It's a bit slow, but we are moving. Yeah, we are moving. I don't know why some are still here. Yeah, it is moving.
Sheila, let's go to our rooms now.
Yeah, I think these people could, yeah, they have all
Yeah.
gone now.
Yeah,
thank you.
great. See you.
So, I'll see you. Only 5 minutes, right? Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back to the main room. So as usual, we shall start with group 1.
Oh, yes, we can. So we have some interesting experiences and also suggestions to answer the question where to source data for loss and damage. So Lilia from Moldova informed us that there are international databases recommended by the World Bank, especially for the agriculture, and they use that in Moldova. And also OECD databases, which are also great, but also the Moldova possesses and collects its own data, and in most of the sectors they have disaggregated data. But however, Lilian noted that this data that they have, it's a really complex system of data, and they are not sure whether they will report that data in their BTR or not. So also from Tanzania, we've been informed that they have a department for disaster risk management that is also in charge for the data management in the case of the natural disasters. But also the important role is under the meteorological authority that has a mandate and that track the meteorological hazards and prepares all these forecasts, etc., etc. So these were the main parts of our discussion in the group 1. Sheila, the floor is yours. Group 2.
Yeah, thank you so much. So group 2, we had some our question was about, do you have some good practices, experiences, and lessons in the adaptation process to share with other countries? What works and what does not work? So we had good sharing from Georgia, where the experience was more of lessons learned, because for them, they learned from the past experience where they were trying to rehabilitate the one of the areas that had been affected by wind, and they planted some trees for wind breaks. But this did not work because it was not well managed. So there were mainly major issues of sustainable management of some of these interventions. And now when they are designing new interventions for adaptation, they are very cautious about the sustainability. And that was a lesson. So on the other hand, we also had someone who said about a good lesson is having good coordination structures, which is very much appreciated. And then we had also sharing from Eswatini, where they talked about that they have had so many interventions such as roof water harvesting, backyard gardens. There's also conservation agriculture, and they have also had an innovation where they are trying to convert their irrigation systems to water-saving technologies. Yes, so those are the few sharings that we had from colleagues from different countries. Yes, so I can see someone is congratulating you about that you represented them very well. That was very good. So we are going to our last close-up session, which is also, since it's our last day today of the 4 series, would like to run a Menti to pick your views on how we can do better in future. So I'm going to present the Menti presentation, and I will request that you also pick the code. So in the meantime, as I upload the presentation, kindly go to www.menti, and as you can see from the screen, the code for today is 67596658. So these are the instructions of our Menti for today. So kindly go to Menti and put in www.menti.com. The code for today is 67596658. I can see a few people have joined us. Today we're around 20. Your views are very, very important for us to improve our future sessions, such as these sessions. And when you actually give us feedback, we try to put that feedback in practice so that we can improve every time we are delivering to you. So the code is 67596658. The first question would like, of course, to know where you have been joining us from for the 4 series. It would be nice to pin your location on this world map. It would be very nice. Since we are two regional, we are 2 networks. We have those from Eurasia and Anglophone Africa. So we would like to know where you have been joining us from. I think it would be very interesting to see how we are distributed to share knowledge and learn about adaptation reporting. So I can see so far only 3 people have been able to locate their location. Would want to know where you are located. I don't see anyone from Anglophone Africa at the moment, but I have seen people sharing from Tanzania, from Eswatini. Yes, I saw someone from, yes, the Gambia. So kindly pin your location. Yes, but I see we still have few people. So go to www.menti, and the code for today is 67596658. I can still see that we are very few. When we are few, sometimes it becomes a challenge to evaluate our learning. You can imagine 2 out of around 60 people have registered. it would be very difficult to make judgments. So if all of you actually get on the Menti and give us your views, it would really make our evaluation more impactful. Yes, so the code for today is 67596658. I would be very glad. We have so far 4 responses about this question: what remains the biggest challenge in reporting adaptation? We have participants who are saying defining adaptation indicators, availability of request information, lack of data, reporting on results, accessibility, stroke availability of information requested for BTR, and then reporting the loss and damage, progress in monitoring and reporting adaptation. So if we have more responses, it would also help us to design future webinars by looking at the most requested or most gaps. So kindly log in www.menti.com. Our code for today is 67596658. Yeah, thank you so much. I can see 9 responses. I'm so happy. Yes, we have data collection distribution as one of the biggest challenge. I think it came out in the different sessions since our first session, but also some of these gaps here, the challenges can help us to, like I mentioned, we shall have a list of frequently asked questions about adaptation reporting. So if we have your views, it would help us also solve so many challenges. And we shall be uploading all this information on our platform so you can access it anytime. I hope you are registered. So we have to 10 responses. Kindly continue registering. The good thing, this meant it can even work after the meeting, but you need to have the code. So www.menti.com. The code for today is 67596658. Our next question where we have to respond is, what other aspects of adaptation reporting would you like to learn in the next webinar? So one person is saying vulnerability assessment and then defining adaptation indicators. These are very interesting technical topics. I think internally we have discussed, and we hope to kind of see how we can deliver such kind of trainings as we progressively report on our BTRs. So it might not happen this year because now we are already in May, but having these views, then it can even inform our work plan for next year. Yes, this one is just appreciating about the requirements of adaptation reporting. We also appreciate being so consistent with us. We do not take your availability for granted, and we are so grateful. And that's why we would want to improve so that in future you feel like you have utilized your time very well. So 4 responses so far. Another area or aspect of capacity building is ETF in institutional arrangement. Yes, we shall be delivering some of these trainings, but also so far on our platform, you can go and check. We have delivered some of these trainings. You could go through some of the materials. We also put video recordings. You can go through and see all this information. Kindly continue answering the question. I see only 4 responses here. Then the next question is about, what country-specific aspects of adaptation reporting would you like to learn? So I can see maybe this one is from Eswatini, saying good cases of institutional arrangements, and then glacier melting related. So if you are putting on this part, you could put which country so that we can actually follow up in a bilateral discussion to formulate an appropriate training need for the country. So when you are answering us on this part, kindly put a country first, and then you specify the need in the adaptation so that we are able to reach out to you and design a country-specific adaptation capacity for that country. We only have 4. We had over 20 countries, over 30 countries, so it would be nice to see your views. So we are still waiting. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, we are still waiting for more responses. So we can go to the next question. Yes, how satisfied are you with this webinar? Yeah, two responses are not enough, please. Would request that more people, I don't know what happened after the first question, but the responses kept going down. It would be nice to get your views. This is our standard question. So if we had like 50 people in the webinar and we have only 4, it's not a good judgment of very satisfied. So it would be very nice to have more of you give us your view of how you rated our webinar. Would be very grateful. So only 4 views are not really sufficient enough. As all of you work with data, you know what it means to just say that because 5 out of 50 were satisfied, therefore the webinar was satisfied. It's not realistic. So would want more of you to give us your view about this series of webinar. And our next question is, what aspects of webinar would you improve next time? Someone is saying all is okay, more practical examples of good adaptation reporting. Of course, that is very good, and would also want you to be able to share with us your experiences. Unless you share your experiences and good examples, sometimes it can be very difficult for us to know what you have done. But we still have 2 responses. Would be glad to see more responses. We still have more time. I would request that we consider this meant we take it a bit more serious, because we are getting a few responses on some of the questions, and it does not make realistic judgment of the questions that we are asking, and yet we take actually this session very serious because it informs designing of other learning sessions. So would be very grateful if most of you can join and answer the questions. So if you have any challenges with the Mentimeter, you can also reach out to us and let us know how we can improve so that you are able to, or you can type it in the chat. So thank you so much, but I would still ask you to kindly give us more feedback, especially on how satisfied you are with this webinar, because so far we have only 8 people out of around 50. It's not a good judgment. Yeah. So would kindly request that you take it a little more serious. You can log into your Menti, at least you answer that question, only that question, because it's very important for us, even in our reporting on how we are delivering. If you are not satisfied, then you can let us know how we can improve our delivery. So it would be very important. I don't know if members, you can still hear me. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we are here you very well.
Thank you. Kindly log on and give us how you feel about our webinar series.
Apart from my side, I have to do a lot of things.
Okay, thank you so much. We are so appreciative, but we still see only like 8 out of, we had many of you register, because I was seeing there were no many double registrations. So far we have around 50 people in this meeting. We are 20, and having only 8, it's not a good judgment of all the series. So that's why we are asking that it would be nice to log on www.menti and you give us your view. Today's code is 67596658. Yeah, thank you so much. We are extremely grateful and we hope that our last Menti that will be, I can see Saljana, your hand is up. Kindly unmute and speak.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. While participants still answering, especially to these questions, how they are satisfied, I would like just to thank you very much all. And I've noted in your answers that there are still some areas that you want to learn about and to improve your abilities in order to report on adaptation. So feel free really to approach to us with your requests. And also somebody mentioned that you would like to see more practical examples of good reporting and good reports on adaptation. And I just will mention here, and you will get official invitation for our last 5th session, where we have invited representatives of Finland, which are really great, I can say, in adaptation reporting, very advanced, and they accepted our invitation. So I'm very happy that on 28th of May, we will have a representative of Finland to speak about their modalities of reporting on adaptation, and also maybe to see what challenges they are facing with, and maybe give us some ideas on how to manage our adaptation reporting, or how to improve actually our adaptation reporting, and all that with the main goal to prepare our initial first BTRs and their adaptation chapters. So I hope that you will answer, and you are still answering on this question, how satisfied are you with our webinar? We very appreciate your answers and also your comments that coming in the chat. So the whole team actually supported this activity in front of you today and all these days. You could see just Sheila and me and our colleague from Copenhagen, Fatima Zahra, at the first day. But I just would like to thank to Sheila and the whole team that participated in preparation of this webinar, or marathon on adaptation, as we can say. So thank you so much. Sheila, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Maybe what you forgot to tell them, that on the May 28th, we shall also have another network joining us. And maybe we shall get more insights. I think from that network, we have some countries that have advanced in adaptation reporting, and we hope they will, apart from the main presenter, Finland, they will also be able to share their experiences, and I think it will be very interesting. So we shall be sending a special invitation to you on 28th of May, same time. I hope you'll be able to join us. Yes. So maybe Rajana, since this is our last session for that 4, I know we just have like 3 minutes. It would be very nice that we also ask a volunteer to give us their closing remarks, then we can wrap up. Thank you so much. Any volunteer will really appreciate to hear from you. Unmute yourself, put on your camera, and give us closing remarks, and we shall not speak again. We are so grateful. Thank you. Yes, Medea, kindly go ahead.
So I'm happy to thank you. It was really valuable. As a lead reviewer of UNFCCC, I am facing an exam in September or October in adaptation. So we have passed that, and it was really valuable material. And I am aware about the BTR and the MPG there, but there were some details, and for those details and explanations, I am very much. And the organization was also perfect. Sheila, you were very cautious and very just about the timing and about organizing these things. And so thank you very much both, and the organization of it. And I am waiting concluding session there. And I think that it will also, how to say, it will make continuation of this series.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. And you can put on your cameras and say bye to each other. And bye. Bye for now.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
bye,
Thank you
bye.
all.
Bye.
See you.
Welcome, Tanzania.
Bye, bye, bye.
Greetings to Tanzania.
Thank
And
you,
to
thank
all,
you very much.
actually.
Bye.